At the age of 67, Angela Kelly, known as Queen Elizabeth's closest confidant and personal dresser, is finally opening up after decades of silence. For years, she stood quietly behind the scenes, witnessing deeply personal, intimate moments that no one else did. What was the Queen truly feeling when the world's eyes were on her? How did she endure the loneliest and most difficult times? Angela's revelations delve far beyond the stiff boundaries of royal tradition, offering a rare glimpse into the private world of Britain's longest reigning monarch. This is a story the royal family likely never wanted made public. Angela Kelly's journey into the heart of the monarchy is anything but ordinary. She didn't come from aristocracy or influence. She was born in Liverpool in 1957 and raised in council housing. Her father operated a crane, while her mother worked as a nurse. Despite walking the grand corridors of Buckingham Palace later in life, Angela proudly held onto her Scouse accent, a constant reminder of her humble beginnings. Before anyone recognized her as a designer or stylist, she worked as a housekeeper. In 1992, she was posted at the British Embassy in Berlin, serving under Ambassador Sir Christopher Malaby. Everything changed one autumn day when Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip visited the embassy. Angela, unfazed by their presence, struck up a casual conversation with the Queen and mentioned she was planning to return to England. What she couldn't have known was that this ordinary chat would soon open extraordinary doors. Just months later, she received an unexpected invitation to join the royal household. By early 1993, Angela was officially working as one of the Queen's dressers. It wasn't long before she made her mark. Within 3 years, she was promoted to senior dresser, stepping into a role left vacant after the death of Bobo MacDonald, the Queen's lifelong companion and dresser since childhood. Angela had taken on an immense responsibility, and yet she made the position her own, bringing a fresh presence to the Queen's inner circle. Angela's duties went far beyond handling garments. She was observant, attentive, and gradually built something very rare within the royal system: closeness. In a world dominated by strict rules and etiquette, Angela quietly broke barriers. The Queen trusted her so deeply that Angela eventually took up residence in the palace itself. She became more than a staff member, she was a constant presence in the Queen's daily life. In an interview, Angela once said, "I love the Queen and everything about her. She has allowed me to get close to her and she has trusted me for a long time." That trust wasn't freely given, it was earned. Angela brought more than just elegance to the royal wardrobe. She brought laughter, honesty, and an incredible attention to detail. The Queen, known publicly for her formality, deeply valued Angela's sharp wit and lively, puddle-in humor. They shared quiet moments, private jokes, and traveled together without cameras, crowds, or ceremony, just companionship and trust. What Angela and the Queen shared was far beyond the traditional working relationship. She became an irreplaceable part of the Queen's private world. When she was eventually granted the formal title of personal advisor and curator to Her Majesty, jewelry, insignias, and wardrobe, it meant far more than a job promotion, it was a reflection of her deep personal bond with the Queen. Angela wasn't just organizing outfits. She was overseeing royal jewels, managing priceless heirlooms, and researching cultural customs for state visits. Her role, like her relationship with the Queen, was built on years of loyalty, discretion, and unshakable trust. Angela Kelly made sure that every outfit the Queen wore delivered the right message, not just in terms of fashion, but in deeper symbolism. Each brooch, hat, and hemline carried meaning, and Angela paid close attention to every detail to ensure that nothing was left to chance. Gaining that kind of trust from the Queen wasn't something that happened overnight. It was something Angela earned gradually, with quiet consistency and dedication. So how did she become such a vital figure in the royal household? To truly understand, we must go back before she was granted titles or responsibilities and see how her journey began, and how much effort went into becoming the Queen's most trusted wardrobe advisor. To the outside world, Queen Elizabeth always looked flawless, dressed in pastel coats, wearing striking hats, and glowing under the grandeur of state events. But behind those elegant appearances stood Angela Kelly. She wasn't merely picking outfits. She was crafting meaning. Each clothing choice acted as a silent message, a way for the Queen to communicate without saying a word. Angela's job wasn't about following the latest fashion. It was about protecting tradition, shaping identity, and sewing diplomacy into every stitch. Her work involved careful planning, often months ahead. For instance, if the Queen was scheduled to visit Kenya in November, Angela began preparations as early as spring, selecting fabrics, choosing colors, and tailoring designs to fit the event, the climate, and the Queen's comfort. Every detail had to be exact, no improvising, no mistakes. In her memoir The Other Side of the Coin, Angela explained that the Queen's famously bright outfits were not only her personal taste, they were functional. The Queen needed to stand out in massive crowds, making visibility a priority for those watching from balconies, behind barriers, or even on televisions across the globe. That's why she wore striking purples, bold yellows, and soft blues. It wasn't just fashion, it was foresight. But dressing the Queen wasn't just about current needs. It also meant respecting the past. Angela often used royal fabrics that dated back decades, some from as far back as 1961. These were silks, brocades, and laces stored in the archives, untouched but not forgotten. The Queen believed in making use of what was still beautiful and strong. For Angela, this meant fusing the past with the present, transforming vintage cloth into modern, stylish garments suitable for a 21st century monarch. And she did so with a quiet, humble pride. One of the most heartfelt stories Angela shared was about how she broke in the Queen's shoes. Since Her Majesty often stood for long hours during walkabouts, ceremonies, and public appearances, comfort was essential. New shoes, however, can be stiff and cause blisters. So Angela would put them on herself and walk gently around the palace, softening the leather before the Queen ever wore them. Nobody told her to do this. She just knew it mattered. That was Angela's approach, thoughtful, often unseen acts of loyalty and care. Her workspace wasn't showy or chaotic. It was methodical and elegant, resembling an archive more than a fashion studio. Every outfit was meticulously recorded with handwritten notes, fabric swatches, and photographs, all carefully filed so the Queen would never repeat an outfit at a major event. Yet Angela still believed in reuse. She often refreshed older pieces by updating buttons, altering sleeves, or adjusting hems to give them new life. The Queen's wardrobe wasn't static, it changed and grew along with her reign. Angela didn't just create new clothing, she honored the existing pieces, renewing them to reflect the present moment. She would thoughtfully arrange accessories, lay out brooches and hats, and present her ideas to the Queen with respect, offering suggestions rather than instructions. Their relationship was based on trust and collaboration. Angela wasn't just a member of the royal staff, she was the Queen's most trusted guide when it came to her appearance and public presence. Queen Elizabeth was often admired for her timeless and elegant style, but few people truly understood the immense effort, research, and countless sleepless nights that went into crafting each look. Angela Kelly ensured that every detail was intentional, from the precise hue of a glove to the subtle symbolism behind a brooch. Her responsibilities went far beyond ordinary royal events. She was present during the moments that would go down in history. And among those, one particular event stood out, so unexpected, so bold, that it left millions stunned as it unfolded live on screen. Angela Kelly wasn't just in charge of the Queen's wardrobe. She quietly helped shape historic moments. One such moment had nothing to do with elegant jewelry or formal gowns. Instead, it involved parachutes, James Bond, and a stadium packed with astonished spectators. During the 2012 London Olympics opening ceremony, the world was watching, expecting traditional British grandeur, clever theatrics, maybe a performance by Paul McCartney or a tribute to Shakespeare. No one could have predicted what happened next. Queen Elizabeth II appeared in a short film as herself, casually greeting James Bond inside Buckingham Palace. What began like a classic Bond sequence took an astonishing turn. Daniel Craig, playing 007, strode confidently through the palace corridors. Suddenly, the camera cut to the Queen at her desk. She turned, looked directly at the agent, and said with perfect calm, "Good evening, Mr. Bond." In that instant, the Queen became a film star. The scene escalated as she and Bond took off in a helicopter and parachuted into the Olympic Stadium. Well, her stunt double did the jump. But moments later, she appeared live in the royal box, and the crowd went wild. The world was amazed. It wasn't just humorous, it was historic. It revealed a side of the Queen that was witty, contemporary, and willing to surprise. And behind that moment was Angela Kelly. Angela had long known about the Queen's hidden playful side. She had seen it in quiet private moments, those glimpses of humor rarely visible to the public. So when director Danny Boyle and his team pitched the audacious idea for the Olympic segment, most assumed the Queen would politely decline. But Angela thought differently. She supported it wholeheartedly, not seeing it as unbefitting royalty but as a creative way for the Queen to connect with a younger generation. Her encouragement gave the Queen the confidence to embrace the idea. With Angela's guidance, the Queen broke out of her traditional image without sacrificing a bit of her grace or dignity, and she pulled it off flawlessly. This wasn't the only time Angela witnessed the Queen's humor firsthand. One of Angela's favorite stories is about a prank she once played on Her Majesty for April Fool's Day. She found an incredibly realistic stuffed kookaburra, a bird native to Australia, and placed it outside the Queen's window. Then she told the Queen that a wild bird had mysteriously landed there, as if summoned by the Commonwealth itself. The Queen examined the toy bird intently through the window, her expression serious. Then, with her classic dry wit, she said, "You're joking." Instead of being upset, she burst into laughter. That light-hearted moment revealed something deeper. Angela wasn't just another staff member, she was someone the Queen trusted enough to let into her personal world. A world filled with inside jokes, sincere loyalty, and shared laughter. Few people would dare to pull a prank on the monarch. But Angela could, because their bond was built on something rare, deep friendship and mutual respect. Inside a palace governed by strict protocol, Angela brought something rare, comfort and calm. Her role went beyond simply dressing the Queen. She helped her feel like herself, especially during high-stress moments when the world's eyes were watching. Angela was often just out of sight during major public appearances, a quiet but essential presence behind the Queen's composed image. She made sure every detail was perfect, from matching earrings to well-worn shoes to the tilt of the hat. But her contributions weren't just visual. She lightened the mood, sometimes making the Queen laugh moments before she stepped into the blinding flash of cameras. What the public saw was elegance and grace. What they missed was the close friend who smoothed coats, whispered soft jokes, and intuitively stepped back when needed. Angela's influence wasn't limited to fashion. She preserved the mood, the memory, and the enduring magic of royal tradition, moment by moment. And while her involvement in the Queen's Olympic appearance may be one of the most talked about surprises, it was just one example of Angela shaping royal history quietly from behind the scenes. There's another lesser-known part of Angela's work, something that never made it into glossy fashion spreads. She once revived a priceless royal heirloom with an unlikely tool, tea bags. In fashion, recreating a gown might not seem extraordinary. But when that gown has been worn by royal newborns since Queen Victoria's era, the task becomes a matter of honoring legacy. In 2004, Queen Elizabeth II came to Angela with a heartfelt request. The royal christening gown, originally crafted in 1841 for Queen Victoria's eldest daughter, had become too delicate to use. Over more than a century, the gown had clothed over 60 royal babies, including the Queen's own descendants. By now, the Spitalfield silk and Honiton lace were so fragile that touching them risked damage. The Queen didn't want a modern-looking replica. She wanted something that captured the spirit of the original, its feel, its character, its story, and she trusted Angela to do just that. This wasn't just a sewing project. It was about weaving together emotion, history, and tradition. Angela understood that immediately. With her years of experience and deep familiarity with the Queen's values, she knew the gown was more than fabric, it was a symbol of royal continuity. Angela and her team approached the task with meticulous care. They examined every feature of the original gown. The lace had to be precisely replicated. The silk's texture had to be just right. The stitching and drape needed to mimic the original perfectly. After much searching, they found suitable lace in Italy, a place renowned for its refined textiles. But a new issue emerged. The lace looked too fresh. It lacked the antique warmth and gentle yellowing that gave the old gown its charm. The result, though technically accurate, risked looking like a costume instead of a piece of history. Angela, however, wasn't discouraged. She turned to an unexpected solution, an everyday British staple, Yorkshire tea. She used simple tea bags, the kind most people steep in mugs on chilly afternoons, to give the lace that soft aged tone that matched the original perfectly. Angela gave the royal lace a soft antique tint by soaking it in brewed tea, creating the perfect cream color, just faded enough to reflect the original, yet fresh enough for a new generation. That small yet thoughtful act of dyeing lace with tea perfectly embodied Angela's personality, practical, creative, and deeply respectful of tradition while fearlessly embracing innovation. When the newly designed gown was finally completed, it was nothing short of stunning. The first royal baby to wear it was James, Viscount Severn, the Queen's youngest grandson, during his christening in 2008. Though the occasion was quiet, it carried deep symbolism. It marked the beginning of a new era, one in which the royal family could honor its heritage while gracefully moving forward. Since then, the gown has been passed down and worn by many royal babies, including Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis, and even Archie Harrison, the son of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Each time the public caught a glimpse of that lace and silk, they were reminded of a tradition nearly 200 years old, preserved through the patient, skilled hands of Angela. But her dedication extended far beyond gowns and ceremonies. When the world was abruptly altered by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020, the atmosphere within the palace transformed as well. Everything came to a standstill. As global life hit pause during the pandemic, the grand gates of Windsor Castle quietly shut. Public appearances were cancelled, royal tours were put on hold, and the usual grandeur disappeared. What remained was something far more personal and revealing. Within the castle's walls, Queen Elizabeth II's world narrowed to its most basic form: no press, no lavish dinners, just a few familiar rooms, limited company, and a profound silence. And in the midst of it all stood Angela Kelly. Angela, who once dressed the Queen for state banquets and grand events, took on an even more intimate role during that time, caring for Her Majesty in isolation. She was one of the very few allowed into what the palace discreetly referred to as the HMS bubble, a closely knit group of roughly 20 staff members who chose to live and work in isolation alongside the Queen and Prince Philip at Windsor Castle. The title may have sounded quaint, but the reality was challenging. No one could leave or visit their families. Each person inside the bubble made deep personal sacrifices to protect the Queen. Angela, in particular, gave up far more than holidays. She surrendered months of her life for the safety of the monarch she had long admired and served. Within the bubble, Angela took on multiple responsibilities. No longer just the Queen's dresser, she also became a housekeeper, a trusted companion, and even stepped in as a hairdresser when needed. With no extra staff around to assist with touch-ups or last-minute adjustments, Angela managed everything herself. She personally styled the Queen's iconic curls for video calls and occasional photo opportunities with the same care she had always shown, only now, without the usual glam squad. The days became quieter, routines more simple, and the once busy palace halls eerily still. Yet in that stillness, a deep and meaningful bond between Angela and the Queen grew stronger. They would often sit down for tea in the afternoons, sometimes exchanging laughter, other times simply sitting in comfortable silence. Together they faced sorrow as well. In April 2021, the world watched as the Queen endured the heartbreaking loss of her husband of over 70 years, Prince Philip. Angela stood by her side through it all. While the public never saw those deeply personal moments, their emotional weight filled every room the two women walked together. When it came time to prepare for Prince Philip's funeral, a solemn event where the Queen would sit alone, masked and socially distanced, Angela was one of the few there to support her behind the scenes. Then came a bold and unprecedented step. After the bubble dissolved and the world slowly began to reopen, Angela made a decision no royal aide had dared before. She wrote a book, not filled with gossip or controversy, but a heartfelt memoir titled The Other Side of the Coin. It wasn't fiction. It was her truth, a chronicle of her years beside Queen Elizabeth told from her own perspective. Her writing offered personal anecdotes, quiet observations, cherished routines, and an intimacy the public had never been privy to. For the first time, readers got to see what it was truly like to dress the Queen before a state banquet, to travel with her, to share laughs over breakfast, or to sit in reflective silence during lockdown. Through Angela's words, the world was given a rare look behind palace doors, doors that had long remained firmly closed. Angela Kelly did something no one ever expected. She entered the Queen's private world and remained there for over 20 years. But what came afterward surprised even the most loyal royal followers. At the age of 67, Angela didn't just decide to speak, she invited the world into the royal circle. And it all began with a remarkable act of trust. Queen Elizabeth II, famously known for her love of privacy and tradition, gave Angela a rare and extraordinary gift: permission to write about their personal relationship. This permission wasn't granted after retirement or following the Queen's death. It was given while the Queen was still alive. It wasn't a simple approval, it was a historic moment. For someone as reserved as the Queen to say, "You can tell them about me," was unprecedented. The book that resulted made headlines around the world. Titled The Other Side of the Coin, The Queen, the Dresser, and the Wardrobe, Angela's memoir wasn't filled with gossip or royal drama. Instead, it offered something truly special: an honest, kind, and deeply personal look into the life of Queen Elizabeth. It wasn't the usual picture of a monarch. It showed the Queen as a real person, someone who laughed at inside jokes, followed specific habits, and sometimes made sudden decisions that sent everyone into a scramble. Angela revealed the human side of royalty. She wasn't just a staff member or writer. Angela was the one who dressed the Queen, steamed her coats, and made sure her hats were perfectly tilted. She knew exactly how to fold the Queen's silk scarves, which colors to avoid, and what each brooch meant on certain days. She even wore the Queen's new shoes around the palace to break them in. But more than all this, Angela understood the Queen's moods and rhythms. She knew when silence was needed more than words. For years, she stood quietly in the background of royal life. But now, with the Queen's blessing, she shared what those private, off-camera moments really looked like. Writing the book wasn't easy. The royal household is famously secretive. There's an unspoken code among the staff: don't speak, don't reveal, don't cross the line. Even with permission, Angela was treading into unknown territory. She knew many in the palace wouldn't be pleased. But Angela wasn't loyal to tradition for its own sake. Her loyalty was to the Queen, and the Queen had made it clear it was time the world saw another side of her. Angela's book didn't just talk about state events or official duties. It shared the softer side of the Queen, laughing at small mishaps, choosing jewelry based on emotions rather than rules. Angela included touching details that made readers feel like they were right there in the room, watching a relatable woman prepare for her royal duties. The public responded with warmth and excitement. The book became a bestseller, praised for its honesty and gentle tone. Many readers were touched by Angela's storytelling, but not everyone in the palace was happy. Some senior officials felt disturbed by the openness, even though the Queen had given her blessing. Whispers spread. Some believed Angela had become too close. Others thought she had overstepped. Behind the palace walls, it felt like she had moved from staff member to public figure. But Angela wasn't looking for fame. She simply shared what she had lived, respectfully, honestly, and with the Queen's full approval. That's what made her story not just powerful but also controversial. For Angela, writing the book wasn't the conclusion. It was just the beginning. There was still one detail she had left out, something deeply personal that Queen Elizabeth had never revealed to the public. Until now. It was the Queen's secret wish, a part of her story that had remained hidden for years. For decades, the world viewed Queen Elizabeth II through the lens of formality. Portraits and official photographs showcased her as the epitome of tradition and elegance. These images, marked by stiff collars, perfect hats, and carefully composed poses, reinforced the image of a monarch who represented centuries of royal legacy. To the public, she was the sovereign on the throne, distant, dignified, and bound by ritual. Yet beneath that poised and regal image was another side of the Queen, one rarely seen and never officially acknowledged. This was a woman who longed to be recognized not just as a figurehead but as an individual. This more personal side of Elizabeth was private and heartfelt, and for a long time, it remained concealed. Angela Kelly, the Queen's loyal dresser and confidant, had a rare view of this hidden dimension. In her honest and moving memoir The Other Side of the Coin, Angela unveiled one of Queen Elizabeth's most surprising and personal wishes. She wanted to be photographed in a casual, unguarded way, to reveal a more relaxed and genuine version of herself. In royal circles, such a request was revolutionary. The monarchy had always guarded its image fiercely. Every appearance and every photograph followed strict guidelines meant to preserve age-old traditions. Informal pictures or candid moments simply didn't fit that mold. But over time, the Queen began to desire something different, a reflection of herself that felt real and relatable, something that transcended the usual formality and reached people on a personal level. Angela fully understood the significance of this quiet wish. She knew it had to be handled delicately, honoring the Queen's dignity while gently challenging the constraints of custom. With the Queen's subtle nod of approval, Angela arranged a private, informal photo session, far removed from the spotlight and the ever-present royal aides. In this setting, Queen Elizabeth could finally just be herself, relaxed, at ease, and unfiltered. Among the most striking images captured was one where the Queen stood with her hands casually in her pockets. It was a simple pose, but it spoke volumes. This was a monarch willing to evolve, to step beyond the stiff formality that had defined her reign. That photograph wasn't just a picture, it was a quiet rebellion against decades of rigid royal image-making. Angela's book is rich with such revealing and heartfelt details, offering glimpses into the Queen's character that few had seen. One memorable insight was the Queen's practical mindset. She had great respect for the royal storeroom, a collection of materials built up over many years. Rather than ordering new items, she often preferred to reuse or repurpose existing fabrics, showing a thoughtful frugality rarely associated with royalty. This approach reflected not only a respect for tradition but also a grounded and sensible nature. Readers were also charmed by stories of the Queen's humor, particularly her willingness to be part of April Fool's Day pranks. These light-hearted moments painted a new picture, one of a woman who could laugh, who had a playful side hidden beneath her crown. The public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Angela's warm and respectful portrayal of Queen Elizabeth helped humanize her in the eyes of many. No longer just a symbol of monarchy, the Queen came across as a real person, someone with feelings, humor, and a surprisingly down-to-earth spirit. The other side of the coin offered a fresh and intimate look at Queen Elizabeth's life, full of grace, quiet courage, and authenticity that few had ever imagined. And now, after hearing about the Queen's secret wish and Angela Kelly's bold choice to share it with the world, we ask you, has this changed the way you view the Queen? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and stay tuned. Our next video is coming up, and it's definitely one you won't want to miss.